very sad to see a young girl on a table with vascular injury, with 3 of my pediatric consultants on her. Excuse me.
An emotional vascular surgeon, Adib Kanafa, talking about the 4-year-old girl with gunshot wounds to her pelvis in Theatre 6 at Christchurch Hospital on Friday afternoon.
I have 4 kids, and the youngest is 7, the oldest is 14, and I've just imagined that this is one of my kids. I coped, I was able to perform my job, and I left my emotion after. After I prepared her, my colleagues were around me as well.
Choking back tears and comforted by his colleagues, Mr Kanafa said the little girl was transferred to Starship Hospital, and while she remains in a critical condition, he is optimistic she will survive. A Muslim who trained at Birmingham Hospital in England, Mr Kanafa said he'd also lost personal friends in the attack.
One of my own patients, vascular department, he passed away. And the other doctor, Amjad, also I knew, he passed away. Of course, Salma, my wife, knows, as a woman in circles, she knows most of the wives have lost their husbands. So we knew some of them, we visited some of them. As a doctor, usually you tend to perform well because we perform under stress, so we're pretty good. Emotionally, you leave that when you really go home and you comfort yourself.
Emergency medicine specialist Dr Dominic Fleischer, who worked through the Christchurch quake, said whilst gunshot injuries were not unusual at his trauma centre, there were usually 1 to 2 a month, not 48 patients in less than an hour.
The first inkling we had is when 2 patients came through with glass injuries who'd broken through a window, and they ran to us and told us we'd expect many more in the next few minutes, and they were right. So we activated the mass casualty incident, which was the earthquake, was the last time we did that. And then the next 2 hours was really a blur.
Dr Fleischer said hospital staff managed to save everyone except one victim who died on arrival. Meanwhile, Police Commissioner Mike Bush today commended police for the time they took responding to Friday's massacre, saying their swift response prevented a 3rd terror attack. He said police were on the scene of the Deans Ave shooting within 6 minutes, the armed offenders squad within 10 minutes, and the alleged gunman was in custody in 21 minutes. He said he had no doubt the offender was on his way to another attack when he was arrested by 2 officers on Brougham Street. But while the police response on the day was swift, there has been some criticism and frustration about the time taken to release the bodies of the 50 murder victims.
As of last night, at 11:30 p.m, 21 of those victims had been formally identified. By the end of Wednesday, we should have completed the majority of those identifications. But I have to say that some of those victims will take a little longer.
Over 100 people are involved in the process, from the mortuary to victim identification teams and pathologists and coroners.
We have a large police team. We have a large number of forensic experts. We have international experts as part of that 120 strong team whose absolute focus is reuniting these victims with their loved ones.
Mr Bush said whilst his number 1 priority was looking after bereaved families, the police also had other obligations.
And the first one, on behalf of the Chief Coroner and all of the coroners, is to ensure absolute accuracy in that identification process. It must be to the standard required for a coroner, part of our process, and we have 6 coroners, including the Chief Coroner, on site right here to enable that to occur, working with our reconciliation team. That standard of identification must be to evidential standards, and that occurs here. So there is a hearing for every one of those victims taking place very close to where you are now. And of course, if we get that wrong, that is unforgivable.
The identification process itself began inside the 2 mosques, with family members identifying their loved ones later.
The primary evidence we need for identifications is around fingerprints, DNA and odontology. That's the top bar, but we use circumstantial and visual as part of that process.
Mr Bush said the police also had comprehensive legal responsibilities and was working as quickly as possible.
We must prove for prosecution the cause of death to the satisfaction of the coroner, to the judge. You cannot convict for murder without that cause of death.
As we go to air, police say 30 victims have now been formally identified. For Checkpoint, Bridget Burke.